Welcome to Scriptural Snapshots, brought to you by Living Faith Ministries in Kaiser, West Virginia, where we bring the living Word of God into your life. I'm Pastor Gordon Brubaker. We're talking about who is this Jesus, and one of the ways we're answering that and looking at this today is, where does authority come from? Where did Jesus get his authority from? And we find in Matthew chapter 21, I won't go through it all again, but Jesus is teaching in the temple, and the religious leaders, who were also the political leaders of the day, came and said, by what authority do you do these? Or by what exousia? What freedom do you have that you can do what you're doing? And Jesus asked them a question. He says, well, where did John the Baptist get the authority to baptize people? Was it from God? Was it from heaven, or was it from men? And it says the Pharisees and the Sadducees, because they feared the people, they feared the crowds, they would not answer. They wouldn't take a stand. They just gave you the typical political, the typical religious response, and they wouldn't take a stand. And so Jesus said, well, then neither will I tell you by what authority I do these things. So Jesus, it was kind of like a stalemate. But the problem is, the church is at that point today. We still deal and struggle with the same confusion in our culture today. Where does authority come from? Now, this is really interesting because recently some prominent news analysts, I don't know if you'd call them reporters, commentators, but some significant reporters have criticized people who they say they believe that human rights come from God. They criticize them. Now, this is amazing to me. Where does your authority come from? Well, if you say our human rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that they come from God, you are making a statement. And they were stunned and shocked that these people would think that God is the one that gives rights. They even went on to say that we know that rights come from governments, rights come from other people. It's like, but if rights come from people, then they can take the rights away from you at their choosing, because your authority is limited to people. But if your rights come from God, then no government has the right or the authority to take your rights from you. Now, I know they do. I know there's oppression. I know there's suppression. I know there's murder of people that disagree. We see it all over the world all the time. But that doesn't change the reality that it's God who gives us human rights. It's God that gives us dignity. It's God that sets us in these places to where we have the honor of God. And see, this is what they couldn't understand about Jesus. Where does your authority come from? Well, if your authority comes from men, then you're always going to be subservient to men, to whoever is in power, whoever is in control. You're going to be like a dog lapping at the scraps from the table that they give to you, because you don't know who you really are. And you're going to be subservient to men and be a slave to their whims in order to get blessings, to get honors, to get favors from them. And you're always going to be looking and depending upon men instead of to God, who is our provider. See, if our rights come from God, then men do not have the right to take away what God has given. And in actuality, they can't take it away. They may force you to kneel, they may force you to obey what they do, but on the inside, you can stand up. On the inside, you can know who you are of God. We're not talking about revolution. We're not talking about a physical overthrow of a government. We're talking about knowing who you are in God and the authority that God gives to you, that governments, even, no matter how hard they try, cannot take it away. This is why so many people today don't want free speech. They don't want the gospel preached. They don't want this in the schools. They don't want it in the colleges. They don't want it in government. Why? Because if true religion, and by that I mean Christianity, by that I mean Judaism, I want to be specific here, they believe that rights come from God. And if you start teaching people that, then men lose their authority of intimidation, because God is the one who gives human rights. Martin Luther King dwelt on this. He lifted this up. He championed rights for all people, not just blacks, for all people, that we all be treated equal and fairly under the law. And he changed the culture of the United States of America and brought us into an era of liberty that men have since gone against and actually defamed Martin Luther King Jr. because he gave us rights, because he believed rights came from God, and he believed, like our Declaration of Independence, that the duty of government is to protect the rights that God has given to us. This is radical. Where does authority come from? From men or from God? This is a question of who Jesus is and who Jesus is to you. I'm Pastor Gordon Brubaker. God bless you.